Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's been a bit of a red week for me. Down about 14,000, 13,000, about 4%. Not particularly good compared to the S&P. The S&P is up 0.94%, so it's a fair underperformance. And Nasdaq up 1.79%. Sort of continued positivity from Nvidia and sort of various related stocks. Nvidia, I think, have pulled back slightly, but overtook Apple as the second largest company in the world, not long behind Microsoft now. So yeah, interesting. Decent sort of market performance, and my sort of losses have largely come from a little bit of a crypto dip at the end of Friday, and gold and silver being sort of very volatile. This account sort of hasn't really done too bad. These sort of, as I say, related stocks to Nvidia, Broadcom doing quite well, pretty much at the highs of where I've been, and TSMC similarly, sort of 67% up now on TSMC without the dividend. So yeah, looking pretty strong. Miners sort of a bit of a mixed bag. Sort of waiting for the Vale results for the next quarter. It's a little bit looking a little bit rocky. But yeah, sort of elsewhere, not too bad. But let's have a look at some news. So first week of the month, I thought I'll have a good look through the crypto miners. So we had CleanSpark report. They have had, it's the first sort of full month since the Bitcoin halving. So obviously all the numbers are quite a bit down from earlier this year. But they've mined 417 Bitcoin. Not too bad. They sold 2.43, so yeah, just paying a small amount of expenses aside from the sort of stock-based compensation. But they do want to keep everything pretty much. They do now hold 6,154, so closing the gap between them and Riot, because they are mining more. The month end fleet efficiency 23.05. Everyone's sort of looking to get under 20, and 17.97 current hash rate, which admittedly really isn't going up a great deal. They've got their sort of plans to expand, which at the moment they're still being quite quiet on. They have the options to buy the miners, but sort of not a huge amount. They had their new site that they acquired, and I think they were saying about 7 exahash potentially for that, but not that much. They've got plans for a lot more, and the only sort of expansion they're doing at the moment is this Dalton facility, but that's going to be well, it's expanded 0.8 exahash and should be 2.4 once sort of fully complete. They've not even expanded 0.8 yet, but yeah, slow going, but they do have a lot online, so they're still getting a lot of Bitcoin and a reasonably high valuation. So on the flip side, Riot Platforms not getting much love at all because they are sort of still in the process of upgrading and not really showing sort of strong numbers just yet. They've still got their faulty rigs at the Rockdale facility, so yeah, they're not producing a huge amount. Bitcoin produced 215 after the halving. Not great, but they do hold 9,084 Bitcoin, which is a hell of a war chest, and they do have a large amount of cash on there as well. So they are splitting deployed hash rate from operating hash rate now. They didn't really used to, and they are replacing some of these miners at the Rockdale site. So exahash has come down from 12.4 to 11.5 in the last month, and operating hash rate down from 8.6 to 7.4. So they're in the process of replacing these, but yeah, that doesn't give you particularly good numbers at all. Deployed at Corsicana though rose from just sort of barely getting started in the end of April to 3.1 exahash at the end of May. So not too bad. Average, you can't really take sort of operating hash rate because it is operating, or it is the average. So yeah, if they're installing miners all throughout the month and they are all sort of being turned on, then you don't really want an average for the month. You want sort of where they are going forward. So 3.1, although this will increase drastically from the looks of their numbers. Starting to get the demand response credits and power credits as well. So $7.3 million for the month. Sort of having a little bit of napkin maths, and that does seem more profitable than having the rigs on, even at sort of nearly $70,000 Bitcoin. So fair enough. Turn the rigs off and sort of rake in that nice sort of total. Just looking at their, they haven't sort of changed their targets at all though, and yeah, they're looking to increase from 14.7 to 21.4 in the next month. That is quite a big, I mean, it's 50% increase in the next month, and then up to sort of 27.1, and we're presuming at the end of Q3 that will be 27.1 deployed and operating. So operating is going to go from 8.8 to 27.1 in 4 months. That is sort of a heavy target, but I mean, they are essentially just building most of it out here. It's just, you know, put the rigs in and turn them on. To put it for sort of very simplistically, it's not quite that simple, and then replace the ones at the Rockdale site. But big target. We'll have to see if they get there. The other thing they're doing with their cash as well is buying more of Bitfarms. We sort of covered last week that they'd bought up to, it was a 9%, they bought up to a 10% stake in Bitfarms, sort of in the last day, I think it was the Friday. And in the last week, they have increased that to 12%. So it looks like the offer that they put in is getting rejected. They were sort of buying some shares at 210, 215, and I think they put in an offer for $2.30, $2.30. That looks like it was rejected. Pretty much everyone is obviously Bitcoin bulls. They may have bought in at sort of $4, $5, $6. They don't really want to be selling those for $2.30 and getting Riot stock. So even if they think Riot will do well, so that was rejected. But Riot have been buying a little more, another 2% of the company at sort of $2.45. Whether this means that they have any more of a chance of acquiring them, we don't know. Obviously, if they own 12%, they can vote for them to put through a deal with their 12%. But I can't imagine that'll swing too much. I quite like this move either way, to be honest. They had sort of $620 million or something of cash on the balance sheet, earning 5%. But I always thought there was obviously better uses for that money. From what I understand, they do have to keep some cash because of the demand response credit side of things. But I would imagine that's sort of a couple $100 million, and they're keeping that cash for sort of potential acquisitions, such as this. But yeah, while they're sort of potentially wanting to spend it, having it in Bitfarms sort of hasn't been the worst thing from the looks of it. They're up to about $2.40 now, so the bulk of it they bought at $2.10 is in profit. So even if someone else buys them out for a huge premium, they should make a decent amount on their 12%. So yeah, I don't mind this as a move, whether they buy them or not, to be honest. So if we're talking about Bitfarms, just having a quick look at their headlines as well. They earned 156 Bitcoin in May, so they're a little bit lower. Increased their total hash rate to 9.5 exahash with 7.5 operational. So as I say, a bit lower than Riot. And they want to get to 21 by the end of the year. So again, big expansion plans, sort of tripling operational hash rate within 7 months. And they want to get down to 21 watts per terahash by the end of the year. So not the sort of under 20, or I think Iris Energy are wanting to get to 16 because they've sort of held off buying, it looks like, and now upgrading a ton with the new S21s. So yeah, buying Bitfarms looks relatively interesting and would give them potentially 52 exahash, as everyone's sort of talking about, making them the largest miner in the world. So not one I've really brought up before, Core Scientific. I did just buy some options, so just a quick look at them. They're self-mined Bitcoin. They earned 447 because they are sort of a very large miner. They're obviously the ones that went bankrupt previously, and they've been coming out of that, and they sort of have an interesting balance sheet structure that they're looking at, which I'll sort of explain a little later. They have hosted sites as well, so people put their rigs in Core Scientific sites, and they have earned 128 off hosted Bitcoin. Their current hash rate is 20.4, so it is pretty big. Just that's why they get the sort of just above CleanSpark's numbers, and they host 5.7. So the interesting thing, because they are in sort of coming out of bankruptcy, they do have to sell everything. So 453 Bitcoin sold for $29 million. I haven't really got to the bottom of exactly what they do with it every month, because they don't seem to be paying off their debt. It's convertible debt, and they're sort of wanting the price to rise, and then sort of that debt gets turned into shares. So wipe off the debt, and we get diluted. That seems sort of a reasonable trade-off when I'm looking at sort of modelling their future market cap. And then the big news they've had this week was a large deal for sort of high-performance computing AI hosting for CoreWeave. And this is a 12-year contract for sort of, initially it looks like $290 million per year in revenue, a total of $3.5 billion over the 12 years. And people are sort of seeing this as diversifying, of course, potentially higher margin than Bitcoin mining, depending on obviously what Bitcoin's price is. But it's sort of a little bit of diversification. And as part of that deal, CoreWeave offered a $1 billion roughly $1 billion offer for $5.75 per share. And sort of immediately on this deal, people got super bullish about the deal, and the share price rose to $6.50. So an offer for $5.75. I guess people were thinking that they would automatically turn that offer down. It's looking like they have done that. They've rejected the unsolicited proposal from CoreWeave. So, as I say, it was sort of a bit of a lowball offer, similar to Riot offering sort of $2.30 a share for Bitfarms. I don't think this was really gonna ever come off. But the interesting thing with the options is, from sort of what I've been reading up, if you have options out of the money, so I was sort of betting on Core Scientific being more than $10, hopefully a hell of a lot more than $10 by the end of next year. So if they got bought out for $5.75, there are sort of, historically, it looks like a range of things that can happen with options in that case. Sort of worst case scenario being that they just are cancelled and expire worthless. So buying them in at sort of $4, high $4 range, and having them sort of go up to $6, $7 almost immediately, and then I lose all my money, is not what you'd sort of really expect. So the option prices actually came down because of, I guess, fear of that sort of thing, or fear of getting CoreWeave stock instead. They're sort of not public yet. They're looking to IPO, but I guess some people wouldn't want CoreWeave stock, and sort of obviously the terms of those deals can be awful, even if you do get any stock. So amazingly, on this deal or the offer and the new HPC deal, stock rose to $6, mid to high $6, and I was able to get some more options cheaper than when it was under $5. So doubled my position. So I have to see how this one goes. It's looking like the last of their sort of dilution targets. The warrants and everything all get exercised at, I think, the mid $8. So it's looking like from then all of their debt will be wiped out and they'll be diluted, and there'll be sort of 400 million shares as opposed to 150 as there is now. But as I say, if I'm sort of looking at these potentially going to sort of 8, 10, maybe 12 billion market cap in the bull run, then divided by sort of 400 million shares, could potentially be looking at around $30 price. So $10 options, that is a decent gain. Then moving on to economic news, we've had a fair bit going on this week. You sort of read various PMI news, ISM numbers, sort of bit of a mixed bag. JOLTS job openings, that is for April, so it's kind of lagging data, but that was a little bit worse than expected. The ADP non-farm payrolls was a little bit worse than expected. The non-manufacturing PMI, ISM, was very, very strong, 53.8. Expected 51, and sort of previous month was 49.4. So under the 50, considered sort of contraction. People were concerned that this was the trend of things getting worse, but they've come out with a super strong number. So strong US as opposed to the EU. They have lowered rates as expected. First cut, I think Canada cut. People have been noting earlier in the week, but sort of see the ECB as a more major bank or a more major central bank rather. So yeah, first cut. The euro sort of weakened on that, and we'll have to see if the Fed and the UK follow. And then Friday, the non-farm payrolls. Sort of, I think no one knows what to make of these numbers anymore. You had 272,000 new jobs against a forecast of 182,000. They sort of revised last month's up slightly, but yeah, if you sort of dig in, it looks like a lot of these are part-time jobs, full-time jobs. If you look at the, this is the sort of establishment survey, I think. They sort of survey households as well and sort of put the two together, but household one is saying full-time jobs down and part-time jobs up, which I suppose isn't really that good. And then you've got unemployment was expected to stay flat, and that's up to 4%. So a bit of a headline number, not ideal, but yeah, you sort of had dollar up on this and a bit of a volatile stock market, but as we've shown, it did end the week in the green, and Bitcoin and gold and silver and everything took a massive hit. So this is what it did to the ISA side. CleanSpark sort of dropped nearly 5%, a little bit more than that sort of during the day. On the Friday, Coeur Mining 9.3% down on sort of a $2 move in silver, and I think what ended up about $75 off gold. So bit of a whack. Riot Platforms down about 4%. Equinox dropped 7.6. Kind of sort of waiting to see what'll happen with them as to whether to sort of average up on them. It would be. Fortuna lost about 6%, which not great after their dilution as well. Sort of taken a fair hit. And yeah, REITs have sort of not really gone anywhere. No one was that bothered about sort of Friday's action in the REIT space. Looking at the interactive brokers side, Pan American sort of went similarly to the other miners, 8%, and KGHM down 2.3%. Sort of with a double whammy. Copper's been down sort of last couple of weeks since the $5 plus peaks. But yeah, I keep sort of saying, mid $4 for copper is very healthy. So on the invest side, taking quite a hit, down to sort of almost $50,000 now. Haven't added any money this week. Maybe looking to sort of spend some of this in the coming weeks. I did spend a little, as I say, I doubled my Core Scientific position, incredibly, even though the price went up 30% on the day when I bought, because people think they're going to get their options cancelled by the looks of it, and it now sort of has rocketed up a fair bit. So yeah, up 66% in 2 weeks. I did buy a small amount of Equinox, but sort of waiting to see where things settle, if I could get some a little bit cheaper, and where this sort of gold and silver is going to settle. I think we might get a little bit more downside sort of through the summer, but I'll be looking to buy through all that. Although I don't have that much more cash to add, so I'm being a little bit cautious, not wanting to sort of pile in everything, in sort of the early part of June, and then things sort of are rough, throughout July and August potentially, and then, a sort of end of year big rocket. I might be able to sort of get a bit better prices in later in June and July. But yeah, Core Mining sort of come right down. Obviously, Equinox come down a fair bit. Clean Spark down to 8,000. Or as I say, yeah, Equinox, reasonable amount in the red now from being sort of fairly high up. Max not doing too bad. Core Scientific, as I say. Fortuna, it's come way down. That was about £2,800 last week, down to 1,200 quid. So the dilution and the gold price coming down, giving them a huge whack. And Riot Platforms, sort of unsure as to whether to add to this. Yeah, looking at some of the other miners really, but we'll see. So yeah, 2,500 to spend. Unsure whether to pile that in just yet. But yeah, leave your thoughts in comments below, and like and subscribe. See you soon.